Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses again for your testimony. Dr. Vandenberg, it's my understanding that the ISA review for ozone is one of the most extensive studies to date conducted by the EPA. You said you have half of it with you. It's voluminous. Could you briefly discuss some of the recent evidence that demonstrates the harmful effect of ozone on human health?
Thank you very much for that question. There is a significant amount of new studies that build on prior studies regarding the health effects of ozone. These include hundreds of epidemiological studies of populations throughout the United States and the world. It includes controlled human exposure studies. It includes toxicological studies, atmospheric sciences study, human exposure studies. There's a tremendous body of evidence. As I mentioned in my testimony, there are over 2,200 studies that have been conducted that are included in this ISA, and this is only half of it. And over 1,000 of those studies are on health effects. So we have the great benefit here of tremendous scientific weight that underscores the nature of that evidence. And what's very clear about it is it's very clear and coherent. A lot of the data, it fits together very nicely. We've got consistency in the results in terms of respiratory effects caused by exposure to ozone. And it is clear to me that with our Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee that there is a strong endorsement for the strength of that science and how it can help inform ultimately decision-making that will be down the road.
Thank you. And you mentioned in your testimony about the 3 definitions for defining background ozone. Could you talk a little bit more about that, expand on that, and how did this approach aid in analyzing the scientific literature for the review?
Again, thank you very much. I think as the science has evolved, and as the other witnesses noted, in the last 40 years we've had tremendous advances in terms of both air quality management programs, but the science that underlies that. And in this document, the Integrated Science Assessment, what we've done is we've recognized that a broader set of definitions may be informative as we move forward. So we've brought into bear this sort of idea that you look at the world's background influence in the United States, you look at the North American background, which includes Canada and Mexico, and you include just North America, or just the United States, excuse me. So what that does is it gives us more information, and I think a key feature here is we want to be as inclusive as we can in terms of information to bring to bear as we move that into the decision-making process.
Thank you. And Dr. Dickerson, thank you for your testimony. You talked about how you've worked on the exceptional event process and the issues with the State of Maryland. And you also mentioned in your testimony you offered some assistance to states in this exceptional event process. I wonder if you could discuss a little bit about what you're offering and what assistance might be available to states as they go through this process, which Ms. Smith noted in her testimony was onerous.
Thank you. I am sympathetic. It took quite a bit of work for the State of Maryland to get its exceptional event approved. The NASA ACAST, Air Quality Applied Sciences team, has a number of scientists around the country who are very clever at using satellite information and other NASA information to help identify natural events or forest fires from both space and in situ measurements. For example, in answer to Mr. Stewart's question, what would you do if there were a tremendous amount of ozone above 60 ppb at some beautiful, and I agree completely that Utah is a spectacularly beautiful state. I love going hiking there. And if you're on top of a mountain and the ozone is above 60 ppb, the answer to that question is if you can monitor with commercially available instruments that have a proven track record other pollutants, other trace gases, like carbon monoxide comes out of tailpipes or oxides of nitrogen. And if the ozone is high and those other pollutants are not high, this is not a controllable event. It's probably a natural event. We know how to identify them. And that's pretty good, pretty conclusive scientific proof that this is not a controllable ozone occurrence. So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you. And I want to go back to Dr. Vandenberg because there are concerns raised about the inability of states to comply if the standard is lowered. Do you believe that the new definitions, or these 3 definitions plus the exceptional event process, could result in states being able to comply even if the standards are lowered?
I think one of the recognitions that we have is that the process of standard setting and then implementation are sort of phased. First we set the standards, then we implement them. A lot of information is brought to bear there. I don't think you can speak to a particular situation as to what would be the approach that you would use, and I think the strength of our science is that we have a variety of tools that we can apply to help evaluate the types of events that are occurring. The key here is to use the science to its best advantage.
Thank you, and I see my time has expired. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.